Now, if you don't know what a beetle is, it's basically an insect that, well, they can be a bit much, all right? Like, look at Pepper here, walking all distracted like she's trying to remember the grocery list she forgot back at the house. Come on, you see it. But look at what she's wearing. It's like 10 a.m. and she's out in a fancy housecoat like that. And then this, zip, pulls a friggin' Buzz Lightyear. And that's with a lot of them, too. Can't just fly, has to be a whole production. Like those Transformer movies. But anyways, that's one of the things that makes beetles beetleish to begin with. The old school flying insects had 2 pairs of wings. You need a little extra if you're made out of rock. Now, some modern insects, like the dragonfly, kept that arrangement. Others, like the housefly, got into performance flying. Their back pair of wings shrunk down and evolved into these little stubby organs that help with balance. But the beetles, they went for something a bit more hardcore. Over time, their front pair of wings hardened, eventually becoming an extension of their external skeleton. Now, these elytra, as they're called, act sort of like a hard-shell sunglass case for that back pair of wings. That lets them hang out on the ground and dig or whatever they do without having to worry about getting a wing nicked. Now, you'll notice there's often quite a bit of wing folded up underneath those elytra. Looks cool when it all pops open, like when you use your mom's tiny umbrella. You know the one. But then, when you're done with your flying, you gotta put the tent back in the bag. Now, this might not look like much, but what's happening is some complex origami. Except they're sort of doing it with their butt. This here's what a wing looks like when it's all packed up. And there's a very specific set of folds that have to happen. You can see the first couple happen while the wing's outside. Then, using the elytra as a sort of guide, they do the rest with their abdomen. And then the whole thing ends with this little fold that acts sort of like a latch. Holds it all in place so it doesn't pop out accidentally. And then, of course, you have each species of flying beetle have to have its own folding pattern. And then you've got these obsessive science hippies that have to figure them all out. But if you want to see some serious wing folding, you gotta go talk to a rove beetle. Now, some rove beetles found the elytra to be a bit restrictive. They wanted to hang out in little tunnels in tight places, maybe get cozy with some ants or hunt them, whatever floats your boat. But to do that, you need a little flexibility, and if you have a full-length elytra, it's like wearing a trench coat made of metal. So over time, their elytra shrunk down to a little bitty thing, and you'd think with that arrangement the wings would follow suit and shrink down too, but no. They've got wings for days tucked up in there. Look at that. Now you can imagine it's a bit of a trick to pack that little backpack up. In this case, the wings aren't just individually folded, but rather they're folded into each other. And they don't let that flexible hiney go to waste either. It's like their version of using your tongue to tie a knot in a cherry stem. And the way they do it isn't symmetrical. Each wing has a different set of folding creases. But it gets even crazier. They can do this starting with the left wing on top, or the other way where the right wing starts on top. And that means that each individual wing has 2 different sets of folding creases. And they're still strong enough to fly. And that's the thing with beetles. They seem simple enough, but you take a closer look, it gets complicated. Take mating, for example. The males have this sort of sac of sperm that they need to deliver to a kind of sperm holding station inside the female. And the inside of the female can get a little complicated. So in order to deliver its sperm, this one rove beetle has a very long flagellum. Now the sperm doesn't go through the flagellum. Rather, the flagellum is used to guide that sperm sac closer to where it's supposed to go. But here's the problem. When it's done, it has to be retracted into a coil, kind of like a vacuum cleaner power cord. But to do it without tangles, it has to be kept under tension. So after mating, they have to go through a whole ordeal, where at one point the flagellum is slung over its shoulder. I'm telling you, everything's complicated, and it gets a little out of hand with the ways that the males try to impress the females. I get it, the females have to figure out who to mate with, but come on, they should be looking for a good sense of humor and politeness. Not that. But is it some kind of elaborate headgear that you use to prove yourself against another male? And it's not even a fight to the death, it's a fight to the shame. Because she's watching and she's encouraging it. But the whole thing's rigged. If your fighting style is essentially face judo, of course the one with the bigger parts is going to win. And then the offspring has the bigger parts and run that on repeat. And I'm sure some of the males aren't that thrilled either. There's times where the giraffe weevil wishes the ladies were into something like biceps. But no, it's all about the neck. And they get teased. You look like an Allen wrench with a pimple. But honestly, I'd take this arrangement over the ones they call giraffe weevils in New Zealand. At least here you got your eyes up front, like a giraffe. In these ones, the eyes are back here. Makes you wonder if people in New Zealand have ever seen a giraffe. Oh sure, they're the ones with the giant nose, right? Anyway, you can see 2 males here engaged in a schnoz fight with a female in the middle. And that seems to have done it, so he mounts the female, and, well, he's feeling pretty good about himself. And that's how you get it done. I mean, unless Big Steve comes around. Big Steve don't care about your tiny little nose. But the problem is that Big Steve can't always see what's under him so good. If you look close here, you can see another male wedged himself into the driver's seat. Sort of lost the battle but won the war. It's not always about advantages in fighting. Sometimes it's about being clingy. These male longhorn beetles have legs like twice the size of the females, and they get a little protective. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a red flag to me, but he makes sure that nobody else inseminates her, and she gets a chance to put the eggs he just fertilized into cracks. But the male forked fungus beetle went literal on the clinginess. When he finds a female he likes, he just holds on for dear life. Here, you can see there's another male there trying to pry him off. They've got these little horns up front that they can kind of wedge in there for leverage. But this isn't about the horns, this is about grip strength. And they've got plenty. They can resist a force 600 times their body weight. And right there is how the science hippies figured that out. But listen, whatever it is, from a long neck to a tight hug, you have to commit to it. Look at the dung beetle. When they were starting out, the other beetles laughed their heads off. But you know what? The male dung beetle said if she's into balls of poo, I'm going to make the biggest and best ball of poo there is. Whoop, oh boy. Yep, they don't tell you that, but uphill can be a real bummer for a dung beetle. Anyway, fast forward and they're like one of the most famous beetles. Who's laughing now? Over time, their bodies have evolved into dung-rolling machines. Look at this one. His face is basically a spork, and the front legs are studded with shark teeth. And they use those like garden tools to excavate the dung in the first place. And they also come in handy if someone else is getting touchy-touchy with dung you found first. Whoa! Now the middle legs don't have those saw blades on them, and they help pack the ball down and smooth it out with some help from the tum-tums. Now the legs in the back, they've got the toughest job. Because to roll the ball, the beetle essentially does a handstand and then uses the back legs to push it. It's like an ab workout you'd find in the Devil's Hit class. And if that's not hard enough, you've got to fight other males coming in and trying to steal your dung. But in the end, it's all worth it. When you're rolling that ball and you know she's going to lay her eggs in it, and she gives you that look, she's not helping. I mean, she's not even pregnant. She can't even push a little bit. And you know what? Sometimes she gets on top and friggin' rides it. But listening to me, you might think that all beetles do is fight and mate. No, they also spend a significant amount of time trying to be not dead. This one here's not doing the best job at that. I mean, that bird's basically cracking it open like it's a nut. I'll tell you, there's one beetle that had enough of that and essentially became uncrackable. The diabolical ironclad beetle ditched the flying and fused its elytra together and to its body with seams of interlocking parts. If you look closer, you can see that those parts are made out of lots of layers designed to peel apart and absorb force. These beetles can withstand forces around 39,000 times their body weight. I mean, that's like if you could withstand a force 39,000 times your body weight. Jerry, that's not helpful. Now, there's another beetle they call the desert ironclad beetle. But they're really not quite as ironclad. And they know it, too. So you know what they do when they're threatened? They play dead. It's smart. Gotta know your limits. Now, I don't know when the beef started between the beetles and the frogs and toads, but I will say that young frogs need to slow down and think about it before they put stuff in their mouth. Case in point, this one swallows a bombardier beetle. Hour and a half later, vomits it right back up. And the beetle's like, come on, man, we both knew this was going to happen, and now you made me miss yoga. Because bombardier beetles have put quite a bit of effort into not being eaten. On the fly, they can mix these two chemicals in their abdomen, which together create a boomy boom boom fizz fizz reaction, which sends out a spray of boiling hot poison liquid. Now, a lot of the time, they'll pop that thing off before they get swallowed. Now, I'm not an expert on frog body language, but I don't think it likes it. It looks like somebody who burned the roof of their mouth with a slice of pizza. Anyway, each generation has to learn this the hard way. Here's a frog that knows what's up. Took a tiny taste and had a flashback and spit it right out. Now, if you happen to be swallowed by a frog and you don't know how to make bombs in your butt, there's another option. Sometimes when you're at your lowest point, you gotta go deeper. And that's what the water scavenger beetle does. Heads for the exit, the other one. And if you want to know what that feels like, I think those leg shakes paint the picture. Honey, I had those weird shakes again. No, I don't think so. The cream got rid of the hemorrhoids. Well, nothing different than usual. I just sat down to have a poo. What's it look like? Hold on. Holy you look like a rejected audition for E.T.'s finger. Hey, bud, put on some clothes. You're all naked. You look like my grandma's ear cleaning finger.